She sighed dramatically, her eyes rolling. What's the big deal if I spent time with him? You were stuck at work late, as usual. When I spotted his jacket tucked away in her wardrobe, I said, "Fine, I stay late to create a future, not to watch you destroy it." She was speechless when I transferred the apartment lease to her name and left with my final box. I'm a creator. It's who I am. I'm not talking about physical construction, though I admire the craft. I mean, I build things from the ground up. I forged a career, starting in the mailroom and climbing to a senior analyst role. I grew my savings by eating simple meals for years, scraping together enough for a down payment on a future. My philosophy is straightforward. You don't get the life you dream of by hoping for it. You earn it by stacking one hard-won piece at a time. My partner, Lisa, was supposed to be my teammate in this. I believed we were crafting the same vision. Now I see she was merely residing in the world I was constructing, grumbling about the effort it took. For 3 years it seemed to work, or so I thought. I put in long hours, often coming home late. It was a trade-off, but a necessary one. Every extra shift was another stone in the foundation of the life I promised her, a home of our own, financial stability, the ability to explore the world. She worked part-time at a small shop, earning enough for her personal expenses, but I covered the major costs. Rent for our upscale city apartment, bills, car payments, groceries. I viewed it as my duty, my stake in our shared dream. She, I now understand, saw it as her entitlement. The disconnect showed in the little things. While I was working late on a crucial project, she was out for impromptu drinks with friends. When I was drained on weekends, she'd be irritated that I didn't have the energy for lavish brunches. My efforts weren't seen as building us. They were an annoyance to her. The person most inconvenienced by my work was Ryan. Ryan was her work buddy, a phrase she tossed out with a sly chuckle. He worked at a nearby shop and they shared lunch breaks. Those lunches stretched longer. Then they became after-work drinks. Then they turned into him stopping by when I was working late. I didn't like it, but I'm not the type to dictate rules. I believe people's actions reveal their true selves, so I watched and gathered the evidence. The final piece fell into place last Tuesday. While putting away clothes, I noticed an item in her side of the closet that wasn't hers. It was a navy men's jacket, a brand she'd never choose for me. It was shoved behind her dresses as if hidden quickly. I pulled it out. It carried the faint scent of his cologne, the same one I'd noticed on her clothes after her late nights. I didn't feel anger. I felt something colder, heavier, the weight of a failed venture. I had invested years of my life, my energy, and my money into a project that was flawed from the start. The base was unstable. It was time to tear it down before it buried me. I waited for her to come home. She walked in around 7, glowing from a long day at the shop. I was on the couch. I held up the jacket. "Found this in the closet," I said, my tone flat. She froze, her cheerful expression vanished. She stared at the jacket, and for a moment I saw real fear. But as always, she fell back on her go-to defense, bold dismissal. She rolled her eyes, a gesture dripping with disdain. "Oh, come on, really?" she said, grabbing the jacket. "It's Ryan's. He was chilly the other night when he walked me home, so I lent him my coat and he gave me this. So what if I hung out with him? You were working late, as always." That was it. That was the moment, the casual, entitled excuse. My hard work wasn't a sacrifice for our future, it was her justification. My long hours weren't building our life. They were her chance to do whatever she wanted. I looked at her at the defiant angle of her jaw, the complete absence of regret in her eyes. The creator in me took charge. When a project is a total loss, you don't patch it up. You cut your losses, dismantle it, and save what you can. "You're right," I said, my voice calm and even. "I do work late." I stood and faced her. "I work late to build a life, not to stand by while you wreck it." I walked past her to my study. She started shouting something about me being possessive and paranoid. I didn't listen. I was already closing the door, my mind sharp and focused. The teardown had begun. She thought we were having an argument. She didn't realize I was already planning my new foundation. Update 1. The 48 hours after the confrontation were a whirlwind of calculated action. Lisa, assuming we'd have a few days of cold silence followed by her reluctant forgiveness, carried on as usual. She went to work. She went out with friends. She was giving me space to get over it. She had no clue I was using that space to execute a full retreat from her life. My plan wasn't driven by emotion. It was practical and financial. The biggest tie to her was our apartment. We lived in a prime 2-bedroom in a sought-after part of town. The lease was, naturally, in my name alone. I had the credit and income to secure it. She was just listed as a resident, nothing more. This was my leverage. On Thursday morning, I called the property management office and spoke to the manager, a straightforward woman named Carla with whom I had a solid rapport. I always paid rent on time and never caused issues. That reliability was about to pay off. I explained the situation in clear professional terms. "Carla," I said, "my partner and I are parting ways. I'm leaving the apartment, but she wants to stay. I need to know how to transfer the lease entirely to her, removing my name from all legal and financial responsibility." Carla was understanding but direct. "That's a tough spot, Mark," she said. "She'd need to reapply on her own, and based on the income she listed as a resident, she wouldn't qualify." I expected this hurdle. "I understand," I said, "but here's my offer. I'll pay the next 2 months' rent up front today. That gives her a 60-day buffer to find a roommate or sort out her finances. In return, I want my name off the lease and all future obligations, effective immediately once she signs the transfer agreement." There was a pause as she typed. The offer of 2 months' rent guaranteed was a strong incentive. It eliminated risk for the management company. "You're serious?" she asked. "You'd pay 2 months' rent even though you're not staying just to be free of the lease?" "Completely serious," I said. "Think of it as a clean break. I just need you to prepare the lease transfer agreement. I'll handle getting her signature." Carla agreed. She said the document would be ready for pickup the next day. The plan was in motion. While waiting for the paperwork, I began untangling my life from hers. I reviewed our bank statements and tracked every shared expense from the past year. I made a spreadsheet, not of her routine, but of our financial reality. It showed in clear numbers that I was covering over 85% of our living costs. This wasn't for her, it was for me, a reminder of the burden I was escaping. Then I started packing. Not her things, mine. I was systematic. I bought sturdy boxes and tape. I began with my study, packing my books, files, and computer gear, then my clothes and personal items. I worked quietly while she was at her part-time job. I stacked the boxes neatly in the guest room, out of sight. I was becoming invisible in my own home. On Friday afternoon, I picked up the lease transfer agreement from Carla. It was a simple, one-page form. It stated that as of the signing date, Mark Thompson was released from all financial and legal obligations for apartment 6C, and Lisa Carter assumed full responsibility for the lease term. My plan was to present it to her as routine paperwork, not a breakup document. The opportunity came that evening. Lisa, still in her giving me space mode, was getting ready to go out with friends. I walked into the living room holding the form and a pen, wearing a look of tired acceptance. "Hey," I said. "I know things are rough right now, but the leasing office sent over some paperwork for the annual lease update. They need it back by Monday. Can you sign this so I can drop it off?" She eyed the paper warily. "An update already?" "It's not the full renewal," I lied smoothly. "Just a standard form. You need to sign as the other listed resident." Distracted, thinking about her night out, she didn't want to deal with tedious paperwork. She just wanted me out of her way. She grabbed the pen, glanced at the dense legal text without reading it, and scrawled her signature. She handed it back. "There," she said. "Satisfied?" "Thrilled," I replied quietly, my face neutral. I took the signed form, went to my study, and immediately scanned and emailed it to Carla. The plan was complete. She had just legally taken ownership of her own burden. Update 2, Saturday was the final day. I had arranged for a small moving truck to arrive at noon. Lisa was out for brunch with friends, likely complaining about her difficult boyfriend. The timing was ideal. I spent the morning moving my packed boxes from the guest room to the living room. They were a physical representation of my life, neatly packed and ready to go. I took down my pictures, my artwork, my few decorations. The apartment started feeling less like a home and more like a place I was leaving behind. The movers were efficient, loading everything in under an hour. I did a final walkthrough. Everything left belonged to her, the furniture we'd chosen together, the kitchen supplies, the TV, her piles of clothes and shoes. I was leaving it all. It was a small cost for my freedom. As the movers were finishing, Lisa's car pulled into the lot. She got out, laughing on the phone. Then she saw the truck and her laughter stopped. She saw me by the truck and her face darkened with confusion and anger. She ended her call and stormed over. "What's this?" she demanded. "What are you doing?" "I'm moving out," I said simply. "You're moving out," she repeated, disbelief mixing with rage. "Just like that, over a stupid jacket." "It was never about the jacket, Lisa," I said, my voice steady. "The jacket was just the final clue. It confirmed a pattern of disrespect. While I was working to build our future, you were spending time with another man." "I told you he's just a friend." she insisted, her voice loud. You're making this way bigger than it is. Am I asked. I pulled a folded paper from my pocket, a copy of the signed lease transfer agreement, and handed it to her. I don't think so. I think my response is perfectly measured. She unfolded the paper, read the first line, and her eyes widened. She read it again, her lips moving silently. She looked from the paper to me, her face filled with shock and horror. What is this? She whispered. Lease transfer, sole responsibility, what does this mean? It means what it says, I explained, my voice flat. You signed it yesterday. You're now fully responsible for this apartment, the rent, the utilities, everything. It's all yours now, congratulations. She shook her head, panicked. No, I didn't agree to this, you tricked me. I gave you a legal document and you signed it, I said. Just like you gave me a relationship and I trusted you were acting in good faith. Seems we both missed the fine print. I gestured to the building. This life, this nice apartment you love, it has a price. I've been paying it. Now it's your turn. I walked to the truck. I had one last box to load myself, holding my essential documents and a few personal keepsakes. I picked it up. Right, I said, looking back at her one last time. I work late to build a life, not to watch you ruin it. She had no response. She stood there, clutching the paper that had become her burden, her face a mix of devastation and disbelief. No laughter, no eye-rolling, just silence. I turned away, placed my last box in the truck, and closed the door. I got in the cab and drove off, never looking back. The teardown was complete. Final update. 6 months have passed. The dust has settled, and the new life I began building that day is stable, quiet, and entirely mine. From what I've heard, the aftermath for Lisa was a complete collapse, financially and personally. The first domino was the rent. The 2 months I prepaid gave her a cushion, but she believed she could somehow escape the lease, that she could sweet-talk Carla at the management office into voiding a legally binding contract she'd signed. Carla, I'm told, was unmoved. She told Lisa the lease was airtight and the full rent was due on the 1st. Lisa's part-time shop job barely covered her car payment and social outings. She couldn't afford the rent, not even close. She tried to find a roommate, but her short timeline and chaotic personality didn't help. She even asked Ryan, her work buddy, to move in. According to a mutual friend who heard it from Ryan, that conversation was a mess. He enjoyed their flirtation, their secret hangouts. But he hadn't signed up to cover rent for a 2-bedroom apartment or take on her financial burdens. When she came to him with her crisis, he cut contact, blocking her number and disappearing. The outcome was inevitable. After the 2 prepaid months ran out, she missed her first rent payment. The management company began eviction proceedings immediately. An eviction on her record has likely made it nearly impossible for her to rent another decent place. She had to move back with her parents. The furniture and other items I left behind were sold for next to nothing or put into costly storage, which her parents had to cover. She lost the apartment, her side fling, and the easy, supported lifestyle she took for granted. She was left with nothing but the consequences of her choices. As for me, I moved into a smaller, budget-friendly 1-bedroom apartment. It's all I need. With the money I'm saving, I'm moving faster toward buying my own house. The financial relief of not supporting someone who wouldn't contribute is incredible. My response wasn't about the jacket or even the affair. It was about her fundamental disregard for my effort, my sacrifices, and our supposed shared vision. She saw my long hours as her opportunity. I turned those hours into the tool that let me walk away cleanly. I didn't yell or break things. I didn't touch her belongings. I simply handed her the responsibility. I took the life she casually enjoyed and gave her the bill. She dismissed my concerns with an eye roll, so I built a new life where her opinion doesn't matter. She had no words in the end, because there's no defense against a well-executed plan. There's no comeback to a consequence you signed for yourself.